Welcome, everybody, to Behind the Curtain, a show where we talk about all things real estate. We are all real estate agents here in the Houston area. So thanks for joining us, Cole and Kelly Watkins, myself, Nick, and then we have Taylor Goldenthol. And so let's get right into it. We've been seeing a shift in the market. And if you're an agent out there, you've probably been experiencing that. Some of you started real estate during the pandemic, and now you're kind of seeing that things are different now. So what are you guys noticing from the other agents on the team?
Yeah, I think, on the West, we have about 9, 10 agents on the West, and the majority of those agents joined during the pandemic in the last 2.5 years. And just for example, this morning, one of our agents was like, "Hey, what do I do now? Like the property's been on the market for 23 days." And I was like, "Well, what's the price point?" She's like, 840,000. I'm like, that's okay. That's fine. Like if we're going if we're going back to like pre-pandemic,
Right.
like that's acceptable. And she was like, "Well, I this is, I haven't really experienced this. Everything I've put on the market is sold in 4 or 5 days, and people have fought over it, and it's gone for $50,000 over." That's not the same market anymore, right? So now we have to talk about days on market. Now we have to go back to that and say, if you haven't been in that market, you have to say, "Hey, to my sellers, Mr. Seller, Miss Seller, 23 days on market is like halfway through to the average. The average is 45 days on market or 50 days on market."
Yeah.
So
I remember whenever pre-pandemic, we would get like the market update would come through and it would be like, all right, average days on market is 56 days, 62 days.
yep,
Like that was normal. So
right.
now we have, I think there's a term called recency bias, right? Whatever just happened is what we think is normal. And so because the last 2 years have been a certain way, we think that that's how it should always be, or that's how it always has been. That's
Right.
why people get freaked out with like interest rates. Like, oh my gosh, they're at a 5. Well, they were at a 5 before. It's just
So weird how Nick stores all of these different phrases in his head, and like he holds these phrases like
so I
you're
can just throw them out whenever I
yeah,
need
it's
them.
it's very impressive. But no, and I think that we would call it like FOMO, like sellers, like the fear of missing out, and now they're trying to like at last minute like throw their property on the market and be like, "No, it's still a seller's market." Well, no matter how many times a seller says, "No, it's still a seller's market," doesn't mean that it's going to turn into a seller's market again. And it's not that it's not a seller's market. We still have 2.5 months of inventory.
2.5.
But at the same time, it's quickly turning into a normalized market, the market that we had before the pandemic.
And it shifted so quickly. Literally, there was a week or two difference.
Yeah.
And if you listed it, we listed our house in Fulshire at the right time. We got it under contract at the weekend of the open house.
Yeah.
And then a few weeks later, now they're sitting for weeks on the market. It shifted so quickly.
What are you seeing? You work with a lot of buyers.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, first of all, for buyers, it's a lot easier now. You're not competing with nearly as many people. You can actually strategize. There's some logic with an offer. There's you actually have some leverage
Been
and
a
some
while,
negotiating.
right?
You know what I mean? You've got time. I mean, a buyer, you're not holding their hand to the fire and forced to submit an offer the same day you see the property. You can actually sleep on it. There's terms and things that can be discussed rather than just offering them everything under the sun. And by the way, here's my firstborn child. Please pick me out of the 30 people that have submitted an offer on this house. And so many people are complaining, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's healthy, it's normal. Price drops are normal. Putting some strategy into a listing and pricing it is normal. Being able to tour several properties that check off all of those boxes, it's normal. I'm enjoying it personally, and I know for the collective at least, we have a lot of new agents just got their license, and we're in a brand new market. It's an even playing field. I mean, we saw so many agents that did tens of millions of production year in and year out crater as soon as COVID happened and the pandemic happened because they weren't able to pivot. And now it's a market that requires some skill, some competency, some effort, and managing expectations too, because that recency bias is a big thing. No one wants to hear, well, you've gained 25% in property value over the last 3 years. We may have to do a $20,000 price drop to get it sold. But no one cares about that. All they hear is the $20,000, not the 25% equity gain. So.
Yeah.
I think that we've been talking about that for like sellers, right, and buyers and like their experience of the market. I think that a lot of agents got their license because of this like gold rush, this California gold rush of real estate, right? I mean, it really is. Agents, they were like, "Hey, look, times are good. It's trending, like real estate, and I can get my license, sell my house, or get my neighbor's house, sell that, and make quick money." And I think that a lot of agents have gotten their license in the last 2 years. And then I also think a lot of team leads have started teams. And I think a lot of brokerages have opened up in the last 2 years that are going to experience a lot of the same like shock of if you built your business solely off of this gold rush and then you're going into like this normalcy or this pre-pandemic market, there's got to be a lot of pivot or you're not going to last.
I mean, it's a grind. This business is a grind. It really wasn't, to be totally frank, for the last year and a half or so, well, up until a few months ago. But I mean, I can look at an 18-month span where people were approaching me on a regular basis, either DMing on social media or texting or calling, people that I hadn't seen in years, wanting to buy a house because it was the hot, trendy thing. Everyone wanted to do so. Now you have to go out there and actually find the business, find the clients.
And once you, sorry, go ahead.
The way I like to look at it is like low-hanging fruit. It's all the leads have been low-hanging fruit. Like they were just there ready, and now we have to climb up there and grab them that need that extra push and that extra help to, you know, get off the fence and buy that home or sell their home.
Yeah. Are we finding that when we're coaching agents, right? Because I think we all have agents that are at different stages of when they started, and you know, when we started also, we've been through multiple markets now. How does that come into play when coaching an agent who either is getting their license right now or they're thinking about it, or some of our agents who, again, they maybe got their license a year ago or a year and a half ago during the pandemic? What is the difference in the coaching?
I think now it's, and Taylor said this the other day in team, this is a skill-based market now. Like if you're an agent, you must have skills. You cannot just go out there and post something on the internet. Hey, I got a new listing, and it's going to go for $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over ask with 17 offers. It's just not going to happen as much anymore. And so, I mean, if you have a unicorn property, that's always happened. But now you have to have skills. You have to, and some of those skills, it's not even negotiations. It's managing the expectations of your sellers, managing the expectations of your buyers, right? It's Taylor, who is very skillful at working with the other agent on the other side and getting them and directing them, because most agents, let's just face it, are part-time. Right? They don't do the amount of deals and business that we do as full-time agents doing 40, 50 deals a year, right?
Even pricing properties now too, like the way that we run comps is way different now. If you're HAR, even like the MLS has a default setting when you click sold properties, 0 to 180 days out. It is not the same market. So when you're pricing a listing, even you can tell the agent that hasn't had a listing in 4, 5, 6 months,
right? Because
they're pricing it based off of the data from 5 and 6 months ago.
Yeah,
it's not the same. I mean, I'm pricing out listings now, 60 days out running comps, because 90 days ago, 120 days ago, it's a totally different ballgame.
And my current listing that's going up, that's the conversation I have to have with the seller, which is, look, it's not that it's not a seller's market anymore. It's just not a crazy extreme version of what we've seen. So here's where we are pricing wise. Here's where we stack up against what's active. And that's an important thing now, is it kind of didn't really matter, right? You didn't really talk about actives because they were like 2 days, 3 days, didn't really matter. Well, now I have to say, like, look, this one's 20 days, this one's 40 days. So are we going to price ourselves the same way they did and have the same result? We're going to end up sitting like they did. So instead, we have to say, how do we undercut these other ones so that we can actually still experience a quick sale and get multiple offers? So it used to be you could just kind of pick a number. Like, what do you want to sell it for? Yeah. And that's why I think so many agents were okay, is that's what they do. Like your typical agent, they do a listing appointment. They sit down and they say, what would you like to sell it for, Mr. Seller? And they could pick a number and it would sell, and it didn't really matter. Now you have to have actual strategy, and you have to say, you have to come in to that appointment with the seller and already have an idea of what you think that they should sell it for, not just asking them, so that you can tell them, well, we can go this way and we're going to have this result, or we can go this way, which is the way I think, and this is the result that I expect to have, which is, let's come in under everybody else. We look like the deal. The 7 other houses that are sitting on the market are going to keep sitting there, and hopefully we're going to have a better turnout than they did. And that just means we can't be as aggressive with like just picking the top end number just because other houses sold at top end numbers. That's why our strategy, even pre-pandemic, we've always said we want to price at or below market value. Right? We want to cause blood in the water for sharks. We want everybody to run in and say, this is a great deal. We could kind of fudge on that for the last couple of years, but I don't think you can do that anymore.
No, and I remember the property that Kelly was like, I was having an issue with overpricing this property, and I definitely do not like to overprice properties, but Kelly was like, look, this other property last week. This is the very beginning of the pandemic. Whereas, the pandemic hit and we did not know what was going to happen. I mean, for all we knew, everything was going to crash.
We were in a recession, technically.
Yeah. And so that's why we were like, I have no idea, Kelly, we can't overprice properties, at this moment. We have no idea what's going to happen. And she was like, well, look at these 3 properties that just sold for, $20,000, $30,000, $40,000 over. I was like, oh God, okay. And then I think we listed that property aggressively. We listed it the most highest price per square foot in that community. We got a $90,000, a $92,000, a $70,000 over ask, and 40 other offers on that same 40. It was insane. I was like, okay, I guess this is the market we're going into now. That was gradual, right? That was actually kind of over a month and a half, 2 months. What we're seeing right now was in a week and a half, 2 weeks, it just completely changed. So managing the expectations of our clients is really going to be one of the biggest skills that these agents now need to know.
Being brutally honest with them too. I mean, I had conversations 3-4 months ago before even the really sharp drop off happened, but it was still very apparent, right? Rates were almost double what they were a year prior. And it's having those conversations of, this is not the market that we should expect to set records. We're not the goal is to sell the property in the highest amount possible in the shortest amount of days. But we can't go out there expecting to break records right now, because you're competing with properties that sold 6-9 months ago when it cost the buyer $400, $500, $600, $700 less a month in interest. So it's just setting those expectations and not being afraid. A listing was a guaranteed way to get a paycheck for the last 2 years. And now you're going to be spending money, spending time, and you may never sell that property if you don't manage those expectations up front.
That's foreign. That, what you just said is very foreign to a lot of the agents that came into the industry in the last 2 years, is the idea that a listing won't sell. Or a listing will get expired or terminated is foreign to us now, because in the last 2.5 years we haven't experienced that. But that is a thing that we have all experienced before the pandemic, and it's a real thing that now that these agents, if they don't price it right, and let's talk about marketing.
Right.
Some of the things that we used to do with marketing, we haven't been doing because we hadn't had enough time. So packets, our brochures, some of the video stuff that we would do, ads, we wouldn't do it because by the time we got it up, it was already sold and a waste of money.
Yeah. I mean, quite literally, pictures on Monday or Tuesday, listing goes up on Thursday, open house Saturday, Sunday, and it's under contract with 12 backup offers on Monday afternoon. And so now it's going back to those basics, I think, is really key.
So what are some of the things that we would tell other agents that they need to be, what do they need to be pivoting with? What should they be implementing that they haven't been before? What are some tips we can give on how they can actually stay afloat in this type of market or succeed?
Well, what we talked about at team last week was prospecting. I mean, that like Taylor said, that was something that you really could kind of back off of the last 2.5 years, because it was a fad, right? It was trending. It was, real estate was just what everyone was going after. The low interest rates made that possible. But now the interest rates are high, right? People still have a earnest, a desire to own real estate. Whether it's their personal house or investment properties, whatever, you have to prospect now. You have to say, my goal is to sell this much property. This is how many conversations I want to have this year, and this is how I'm going to have these conversations on a weekly basis. If you don't prospect on a weekly basis, almost on a daily basis, you're going to be like that sad statistic. 86% of the agents that start are no longer agents in 2 years. It's just the sad fact.
And I think that a lot of agents were so busy the past 2 years because they had a lot of business going on. So they didn't do the basic things that got them there. They forgot about those things if they've been in the business for a little while, like getting more listings off of a listing, doing circle prospecting, door knocking, calling your past clients, asking for referrals. They were kind of falling into your lap. So it's not so much about what new ideas are out there, but what has always worked for the past 1, 2, 3, 10, 15 years for other agents, and just going back to doing those consistently.
And I think it started with, with our agents, the first thing that we do is we say, let's do a business plan. Yep. And that business plan isn't just, vague, how much money do I want to make, or what's your vision for your future? Well, that's also part of it. It actually, I think the most important thing that we do in that business plan is we say, how much do I want to make? How many deals does that mean? And then how many conversations do I have to have in order to reach that goal? You know, Tom Ferry kind of teaches the number of like 40 to 1, right? For every 40 conversations, you have one transaction. Well, now we can use the number and we can reverse engineer our success. And I think a lot of agents didn't really have to do that. They were just like, just meeting people kind of at random as stuff happened, and then they closed 15 deals. Yeah. Now you kind of have to set an intention. Like, I want to close 20. That means I need to talk to this many people per month, per week, per day. And then how am I going to talk to those people? So then we get into like, how are you time blocking? How are you setting aside time for prospecting? When are you going to go and do the circle prospecting? When are you going to be posting on social media? And one of the exercises I've been doing with my agents now is like pulling up the calendar and visually looking at it and saying, okay, we have 8 hours in a day and 7 hours of it are blank. What are we doing with that time? Are we prospecting, or, you know, and then they would fill in the calendar and then they have 1 hour of prospecting each day. And I'm like, but you don't have any business. You need 7 hours of prospecting every single day.
Full-time job.
You have no other appointments. Your whole reason for existence right now is meeting people and setting appointments. So how do we fill up more of your day with that activity? Because that's the way that you're going to, what I'm seeing now is we're in this slump, so to speak, or we're seeing this kind of leveling off. The agents that kick it up a notch, that like pedal to the metal and really grind it out, are the ones that are going to ride that wave up, right? They're going to be able to capitalize and take market share from all the other agents that are like, oh my gosh, this is such a hard market. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to meet people anymore. And they either leave or they just, you know, woe is me, walking around like feeling sorry for themselves. Like, now is the time, if you're a new agent, is like, how do I get as much of that business as I possibly can?
It's an even playing field. I mean, it's an even playing field. Everybody is right back to square one again. And it's a matter of who's going to put in the most effort. I mean, 40 to 1, right? 40 conversations. If I wanted to have 40 conversations in a week, you know what that looked like the last 2 years? Doing one open house. Right. Seriously, one open house. Because if 40 people would walk into it, not even both days. And now it's, okay, I'm going to have 5 or 6 people walk into that open house. And
maybe,
if you're lucky, right? But one thing, too, to focus on, it's a mindset. It's quality over quantity. You had those 40 people that walked into that open house. Why? Because it was fun. It was trendy. Everyone was cooped up in their houses from quarantine. Let's go do something. And now you get maybe 3 or 4 or 5 people that walk in. They're serious. They're motivated. They're intentional. Someone that's looking to buy a house right now is going to buy a house this year, whether it's with you or without you. So then how do you go about capitalizing on that?
Yeah, one of the things that I also think, you know, for agents that stepped into real estate during the pandemic, is that whatever they did, let's just say that they had a killer year, right? Their first year in real estate, they sold 20 properties, right? And they did that within the last two and a half years. Moving into the new normal market, if you just continue to do the same thing that you were doing, you're probably only going to sell 8 to 12 properties doing that same thing with that same work ethic or mindset. You do have to make sure that you understand that you have to work so much harder. You have to prospect that much more, because the conversations and the volume of buyers and of sellers of activity right now just isn't the same. And so I think that just based purely on volume, it's going to be a completely different game on whether someone that just got into the real estate market either succeeds or fails. And I think a lot of agents are going to try to do the same thing that they were doing the last two and a half years, and say, and like, oh no, I'm good. I closed 20 last year. It's only up from here. But that was a completely different market. Yep. And I think that a lot of people are going to be like, oh man, I know that some of our agents are like, what the heck is going on? Like, the last 2 years were a gift. Like, it's not there anymore.
And I think the conversation about coaching has to come up, because I think you had a lot of agents who could get their license and be relatively successful the last couple of years, just trying stuff, right?
Yeah.
And just like, okay, I have my sphere. All my friends want to buy houses right now, right? Because interest rates are low. But now I think my encouragement to people would be is like, if you haven't had any coaching the last couple of years, now's the time to get it, because you want to be around somebody who's gone through this kind of market shift, who's seen it from both sides, and who knows, hey, these are the things that worked pre-pandemic. These are the things that we did, and this is how to do things like business plans that you didn't have to do before. I think that's kind of if you want to know, like, okay, well, what's the secret silver bullet? How do I make sure that I'm successful in 2023 or the rest of this year? I mean, I would think getting a business plan, yes. Prospecting more, yes. But how do I do those things? And how can I learn from somebody? Success leaves clues. Like, how can I follow in somebody else's footsteps and just learn from what they did so that I can have the same success they had? And I think that's where coaching comes in, which is really, I think, the great thing that we offer, right? So we have Bridge Group West with you guys running it, and that's kind of, I like to call it the 99 corridor, right? Richmond, Fulshire, Katy, Cypress, that kind of whole thing. And then you have the Collective, which is people who maybe are self-starters and they just need a little bit of guidance. They just need somebody to say, here's a business plan, here's how you fill that out, and just check in with them every so often. And they can be anywhere, and that's what Taylor runs. And then I'm running Bridge Group Heights, which is, again, kind of centrally focused, in and around kind of Beltway 8 and closer in. But that's what we provide, is that coaching from somebody who's seen it from either side and knows what you should be doing and knows how to kind of tweak your business just a little bit. I mean, I saw when I got started, I remember you telling me, hey, if you want to make money now, like, find buyers.
Yeah.
And then I remember, and then during the pandemic, it shifted. And then it was like, man, if you're working with buyers, you're not going to make any money. You need to find sellers.
Yeah.
Like,
Unless you were Taylor.
yeah, unless you were Taylor.
Yeah, unless you're
somehow.
yeah.
And I think now it's kind of, starting to swing back a little bit more. It's like, hey, if you get listings, that's great. And it's still going to be a great way of generating more leads. And like we talk and teach our agents to do, but really the buyer side of it is where we're going to see the speed again. That's where we're going to see more people being able to close more deals faster.
Yeah, your sign is actually going to have a little bit of time to actually sit out there and get phone calls now. like our sign is like been going out, whenever we list the property, and then it's like under contract. Like no one cares about it anymore. So I mean, I think that in the past we've gotten a lot of business off of sign calls from an active property. So we're going to start seeing a lot more kind of nostalgic things from back in the day coming back for us.
I had a time hop. It is out in Pearland. I was circle prospecting for a listing of mine that I had sold. And literally it was me with a flyer bragging about getting the house under contract in 17 days versus a neighborhood average of like 38 or 37. And like, that was a huge win.
We're excited about that.
We sold it within 3% of the original list price in less than a month. That's huge. That's also normal. And the agents that are going to be able to communicate what is normal and what is expected are they're going to be the ones that are going to be able to succeed without getting that burnt out feeling.
Right. Setting expectations for our clients.
I think the messaging for sure that you're giving out is very important, because they're all saying there's a crash. It's a crash. Everyone, the sky is falling. But if you look at the numbers, for instance, for July of 2022, it was down about 17% from last year. But the price has also gone up. So if you go back 2 years to 2020, we still sold the same amount in volume. It was about $4 billion in volume over, within a 2-year span, because the price point went up almost $100,000. So it's not that houses are never going to sell. It's that the prices are higher. So there's just going to be a little bit less selling, but there's still the same amount of business going around.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be, what do you guys think? Is there a crash coming?
No.
Or is it a correction?
I think we are in a recession.
Yes.
I mean, I think that's pretty plain now, even though the president doesn't want to admit that. I think we're in a
By
recession.
definition, we literally, GDP's down. We are in a
We're
recession.
in a
That's a
recession.
fact.
But there's a difference between now and where we were in previous recessions. And I think, again, going back to recency bias, we think because 2008 was a crash for the housing market, that every time there's a recession, that means the same thing. And that was a very different time. And we've talked about that. And if you've watched any of our videos, we've probably heard us talk about how there was ninja loans, no income, no job, no assets. You had a pulse, you got a loan. And then they were getting these terrible loans. They would balloon, or they were ARM mortgages. And the whole note would become due all of a sudden. And then everybody would get foreclosed on. And then nobody wanted those mortgage-backed securities and blah, blah, blah. Housing market crash. There was too many homes available, right? And people were pulling out HELOCs on their house and then buying cars. We're not seeing any of that now. Like, people have tons of equity in their house. There's still not enough houses available, and it's difficult to get a loan.
It was quite literally a recession that was caused by shady lending practices.
And all of that is like heavily regulated now.
If we're being like statistically speaking, we've had 6 recessions since 1980.
Right.
We had 08, which is fresh in everyone's mind. There was another year, I forget which one, but property values on average went down like 1.8%. And then the other 4 property values go up. They go up.
That's the crazy thing.
You're statistically more likely to have property values rise during an economic recession than you are have them go down.
Now, granted, there's lots of things happening in the world, right? I mean, we all knew that Russia might be crazy, didn't think that they would be invading Ukraine for this long. So stuff happens that we can't anticipate. And I think a lot of what you're hearing on the news makes money by selling fear. So, of course, everything that you hear on the news is going to be telling you the world's burning, everything is going to crap, everybody's going to lose all the values in their houses, because why would anybody watch the news if they said everything was fine?
They were also saying that at the start of the pandemic, don't buy a home, everything's going to crater. And guess what? The best time to buy a house in the last decade was right around March when the pandemic started up.
Yeah.
Right when COVID hit. That was the best time to buy a house.
At the end of the day, what I've been telling my clients who are like, did I miss the boat? Or, this is the worst time that I could buy now. Interest rates are up. My thing to them is like, look, whenever you need a house is the right time. If that's now, if that's later, then wait. But if you buy a house now and somehow we're wrong and somehow everything craters, you only lose when you pull your money out, just like the stock market. So if your house loses value overnight, nothing really changes. If you plan to live there for the next 5 years, then just stay in your house. And when the property values recover, you'll be okay. If what happens is people get scared and then they all start trying to fire sale everything, and of course you're going to lose money that way. So I have my stock portfolio is not doing that great, but I know I don't need the money right now. Just leave it in there, and everything's going to go up. It will recover. Housing, if you look at the trends over history, housing has always historically gone up over time, right? On average, does it have dips? Sure. But over time, housing always gets more expensive over time. That's why the rule is buy and hold rather than waiting and buying, because whenever you wait, 9 times out of 10, trying to time the market and game the market is too hard. Time in the market is the better thing to do, not try to time it. So I think that's just the conversations we have to start having with our clients, which is like setting the expectations, what to expect. I don't think that there's going to be a crash, and I don't think any of the experts we talk to think that there's going to be a crash, but we could be wrong. We really could, but what's the best way to hedge your bet? Well, real estate, because it typically keeps its value. Yeah. You can invest in a lot of other things right now, like cryptocurrency, and be like really hating yourself, right? But housing typically holds its value, at least over time. So if you need a house, get a house. If you don't need a house, maybe wait, And
it's never supposed to be a short-term investment anyway. It's
right.
only very recent.
Yeah.
You're not supposed to be able to buy a house and sell it 2 years later so you can avoid capital gains and pocket $200,000. Yeah. It's not normal.
Right.
It shouldn't be expected.
Recency bias.
The rule is if you can find a house at a monthly payment that you can afford, and you're planning on being able to stay in that house for at least 5 years, then there's your answer right there. Is it a right time to buy? You can either pay a 5% interest rate, or you can continue to rent and pay 100% interest. But if you're going to be there for at least a few years, and it makes sense within your budget, then why not?
I think we're going to start seeing a lot of like creative financing too. I think we're going to start, I just heard of, and it's not a new thing, but it is new. It will be new to us in this coming market, but a 2-1. Have you heard of that? Mm-hmm. So it'll be something that basically we can offer our sellers to say, hey, we will offer the buyers a 2-1 type deal to where, we will pay for, like, if it's a 6% interest rate, right? Right now, if it's currently a 6% interest rate, then basically we will buy down the rate to your loan if you pick our house. So like that's an incentive, and it's like the first year is 4%, the second year is 5%, then it goes up to whatever the normal, interest rate is. But during that time, you can refinance it should it go down. So it's a pretty cool deal. Lender was talking to me about that the other day. That the only issue with it, come to find out, is that they're kind of hard to sell. So not too many lenders, use that product. But I think that, going back to like, is there going to be a crash? One thing about Houston and Texas overall, but one thing about Houston is that Texas is where where everyone is coming to, right? Yeah. Not a lot of people leaving Texas unless like they absolutely have to for a job or family or whatever. But most people are moving here from everywhere else. And then for Houston, Houston, Dallas, right? Like that's where everyone is moving to. And so, we have always had a lot more people, and you can see it in the traffic, a lot more people moving here versus leaving. And so that has always hedged us. So nationally, if we see kind of a downturn, we're the last to get hit and we're the least to get hit overall, right? So
it's all in 08. Houston's housing market was held fairly strong, relatively speaking, and a lot of it is our economy out here. We now have quite a bit of tech. There's a lot of industry, oil and gas, obviously.
Way more diverse, right?
Business friendly, yeah.
Yeah. If it was just oil and gas like it was in the 80s or like early 90s, then yeah, we would, especially like in 2014. right? Like whenever the oil field started really kind of taking a dive, I was in it at that time, and I was like, oh man, I'm fixing to lose my job. Might as well get my license and quit. Yeah. But at that time I was like, oh, everyone knew that layoffs were coming, and across the board. But the thing was that Houston is so much more diverse today than it ever has been. So the oil field going down, or the oil market going down, didn't affect Houston near as much as it did historically.
So do you think that if we don't anticipate there being a crash, do you think that there's anything else that real estate agents should be afraid of? Do you feel like this new thing with like Zillow and Open Door partnering, do you feel like that's something that agents should be worried about, or what's our take on that?
If you don't do it for the right reasons, right? We all exist with a service mindset first and foremost. There are those consumers there's clients, buyers, homeowners that will always say, I just want the best deal. I don't care about an experience. I don't care about this. I don't care about that. And while the data is always there to show that you're going to get less money if you go to one of those companies anyway, but sure, you can save 1% on commission, whatever. But at the end of the day, I think if you deliver a white glove experience, if you really care about what you do and you do it at a very high level, there will always be enough to go around. So the agents that are lazy, the agents that take shortcuts, that cheap out the iPhone photography for their listings, those are the ones that are going to feel this. But the people in this room, the people that are on our teams, other agents that we know that do it at a high level, I don't think there's anything to really worry about if you know that the service that you provide is that high level.
Yeah. Do we feel, because I think at the end of the day, they still have such a small market share, right? And then Zillow sold off all their stuff because they way overpaid for it and they got in over their head. I do think Open Door has a better system. I mean, I think that the way that they market is certainly better. And I think their whole process is better than what Zillow had. So I think Open Door has seen more success than a lot of these other companies. But even if you deep dive, and there's some great videos out there that deep dive into the business and the analytics of how they work and what their revenue is like and what their cost is, they're barely making it. And so I don't look at them really as a competitor so much as I look at them as like somebody else that's doing it. It's like another agent, right? So in the same way that we look at the 48,000 agents that are in Houston and we don't say that's all my competition, we know that it's a small subset of those 48,000 that are actually doing enough to where we say, I want to try to compete against that person because they're doing a lot of business. And I think it's the same way, like Open Door and Zillow, like historically have had less than double digits ownership of market share in areas across the United States. So yes, they exist, but I think we all have seen so many Open Door and Zillow and OfferPad properties just sit. And at the end of the day, for us, it's my kind of the way I explain it to clients is if you need it and the convenience is the most important, then go with it. I mean, I think they have a great model for somebody like that. Just know you might not get the most money for it. And if you're okay with that, then it works for some people. They got to relocate really quickly. They need the money right now. Within a weekend, they're okay not getting top dollar for it. Okay, it's a service that exists. Right. We're not that service, right? We know we're going to get you the most amount of money, and we're going to work to do it in the shortest amount of time. But yeah, we can't hand you money tomorrow like they could. But we also know we, on average, will net you anywhere from 10 to 13% more for the sale of your property than they will. So which one's most important?
And that was always my biggest issue with them. And I'm like, look, you got an offer from Open Door. You got an offer from Zillow Offers, right? You have that offer. Hang on to it. Let us list it. And why would you take the first offer that comes your way? Right? It's always going to be the lowest, right? So like let us do an open house. Let us market your property. That offer is good for 3 weeks or 4, whatever it is, right? So, let us hold it open and bring you multiple offers. If it doesn't work out, take their offer, but for us, we have won so much against Zillow Offers, Open Door, all of these. It's never been a concern to me. I think that there are agents out there that just haven't had that many listing appointments or had that many opportunities to pitch a seller and really dive into what does Open Door actually do? I know what they advertise, but yeah, there might be no commission, but what is a fee?
Right.
Like what is your fee percentage, and what does it come to after they do their inspection? And now it's instead of a 6% commission, it is a 14% fee, on it. And it's like, where did this come from? And then the reason why a lot of their listings have been sitting is because they overpaid for something, and now they're listing it, like 7-10% higher than what they should have, and it's just price drop. Even in the last 2 years, you've seen Open Door and Zillow listings price drop, and they won't budge if we even give them a realistic offer.
Because an algorithm, a computer can't replace a local expert
Absolutely.
at the end of the day. I mean, that's why Zestimate's right. You look at a Zestimate. Yeah, a Zestimate is going to be right within about 20% up or down.
That's huge.
There's a reason why they lost hundreds of millions of dollars and quit buying homes.
Yes.
Because their model doesn't work.
And I think Open Door has a better algorithm than Zillow did. But yeah, I mean, it's at the end of the day, I don't think they're going to replace the agent. Geographic competency is a thing that makes us valuable, that makes a good agent valuable. Yeah. Sure. Will they replace the bottom of the barrel agent with no experience, no training, no coaching? Of course, because they can do it better than that person. But they're not going to replace the agent that understands people, that has relationships, that knows how to communicate, that understands how to negotiate. There's no negotiating that really happens in an Open Door sale or a Zillow sale. That's why we can tend to net our sellers more money than them, right? Because at the end of the day, we understand the market. We know the comps. We know the people, the neighborhoods. Which street, if you go one street over, is a bad street versus a good street? The algorithm doesn't know that. It's not looking. It's just looking at the outside of a house and guessing what it thinks that it's worth. We actually physically go in and tour it. That's why a lot of times people get this kind of teaser offer from Open Door, and then Open Door sends somebody out, and then all of a sudden there's all these repairs.
Yeah, like, oh God.
Yeah, and then they see all the work that needs to be done. Why? Because they can't. Yes, they can give you an offer, but that offer isn't necessarily the real value. That's just to get you excited about it. So
get their foot in the door.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. There's enough space in the industry for everybody. And, I mean, do you think the Mercedes dealership down the street thinks of CarMax or Carvana as a competitor? Yeah. No. They know what they offer. They know what they provide. Chili's versus like Papa's Steakhouse. There's enough for everybody. It all comes down to what somebody wants. But like you said, shop around. I mean, when we have a listing appointment, meet with other agents, meet with other realtors, see how you interact with them and who you trust. Who do you have more of established rapport with? There's not anything to be feared at the end of the day.
It's important, though, as an agent, whether you've been in this market forever or just now entering, to know your value proposition.
Right.
They, Open Door knows their value proposition. They're going to get their own clients. We're going to get our own. We're going to provide, for us, it's 5-star service. It's relationships over transactions. It's we care, white glove service. So maybe that's not your thing, but as long as you know what you're offering, you'll always have a client base.
Yeah, for sure. So with that being said, we don't think that Zillow and OfferPad partnering up is going to like ruin anything for us or is really going to be a big effect on us. Any closing thoughts then for agents who are maybe, again, getting into this industry now? Where do they start? What should they be looking at that we want to leave them with?
I think, for me, it's just in sales in general, or I think Curtis Johnson said it best. Really, any industry that we go into, we're always so used to a win-lose situation, right? When we truly see a win-win situation, we're like shocked, right? And I think that collaboration among other agents, among agents that maybe you aspire to have the same success, right? Collaboration always beats competition. And I think that that is a true win-win. So if you're an agent and you're newer or you got your license in the last 2.5 years, I would say link arms with, don't demonize other agents, link arms with them and say, hey, teach me, show me, train, like, how do I do this? What did you do in the old days? Like, what did you do, before COVID?
Back in my day.
How did you, how did you prospect, right? How did you get business? What is database farming? All of these things, that there are so many tools that are going to have to be used once again to do, 40, 50 deals a year by a single agent.
Well, it's interesting because if you want to be a doctor, you have to do internships or teacher. Most industries require you to do some sort of internship or training. Real estate isn't, you're just like thrown out there and like figure it out on your own. So it's up to you to find that trainer. It's up to you to find someone who has that blueprint. You can't just expect just by joining any brokerage that they're going to give that to you. You really have to vet who you're going to, whether it's a brokerage or a team, to get that training from.
And it's a big responsibility. No one talks about that.
Yeah.
No one talks about the low barrier to entry, as a real estate agent, and then you can go out there and royally screw an entire family out of the equity in their house.
Or there could be lawsuits. They could lose money. Anything could go wrong.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
And I think, like you said, vetting even the teams and the brokerages that you look at, if you do need that coaching, right? Because at the end of the day, they're not all the same. Just like every agent is not, we tell sellers and I tell buyers all the time, like an agent, just because somebody has a license doesn't mean they're good. And just like if you were going to be, going to court, you're going to interview different attorneys to see what their thoughts are and what they advise and what their strategy is, right? Because you don't want to lose in court. Or if you needed surgery, you're not just going to pick the guy who just got his, this is his first surgery and he's doing it on you, open heart tomorrow. You're like, no, I'm going to find the best surgeon that I possibly can because I don't want to die. Now, obviously, houses are not on the same level, but at the same point, interviewing, we want people to interview us as agents, and I know that we'll always win, but as an agent, interview the teams and the broke. Don't just join Keller Williams because you know the name. Yeah. Go interview with Remax. Go interview with Century 21. Interview with EXP and see what they have to offer. And then when it comes to a team, just remember, just because somebody says that they're a team lead doesn't mean that they actually care about their agents or that they provide anything. They give them any resources, any coaching. Just because it's called a team they don't all offer the same thing. They can offer anything they want. Some don't offer anything. You're a cog in a wheel. You're part of the system. You're there to support them. Others like us, we try to go out of our way to provide a lot of resources to our agents. Not everybody does that.
And if you look at the stats, more and more teams or less and less teams are doing more and more of the business because everything is shifting to teams. Everything is shifting to those types of models because that's what consumers want. They want someone that all-in-one service. They want someone that can be there for showings when you're at a listing appointment. They need that support. And so I think a lot of the team leaders right now are going to start seeing that shift. If I'm a team leader, if I don't start offering more things to my agents, and they're going to start going to these other teams and they're going to get bigger and bigger and I'm going to dwindle down. So the same thing applies to teams and brokerage. There's a shift that's going to be happening as well.
Well, that's what we were talking about that last night too with an agent is turnover is huge on teams. It is.
Yeah.
Brokerages and teams, but everyone has to be in a brokerage, but on teams, there's a massive turnover rate, right? Not on the bridge group. If you look at the bridge group and you look at the span of time that we've been operating and the amount of agents that have left versus the agents we have relocated, it's absolutely amazing, and it's because, to what Nick was talking about, is that we look for ways to add value to our agents and say, it is not about just being a good realtor, right? It is about being a wonderful business owner and growing your business. How can I help you? How can I bring value to you? And that's really ultimately what you need to look for in someone that you're linking arms with to say, I want to work with you, or I want you to help me grow my business.
Yeah. So what are some questions that we can ask that we would encourage people to ask when they're interviewing with a team or a brokerage?
My biggest one is, yes, interview the team or the broker, but also find an agent on that team or an agent in that brokerage and say, hey, I interviewed with the team lead or the broker and they're very charismatic. They said they offer all these resources, but do they answer their phone when you call them? Do they answer their emails or text messages whenever we're kind of I need some help or strategy or whatever? That is the most important thing because, and I would encourage anyone to interview any bridge group agent on any one of our teams, because I'll know the answer. The thing is that when we're interviewing agents that are coming to us and interviewing us, that's their biggest issue is I don't have. They promised us the world, and then they're not there for us. Literally, one of them the other day said, "Hey, the team lead, I can't get a hold of her, but she hired a trainer, a sales trainer for us, and he lives in Costa Rica. He's not here. He's not even local.
In the same market.
Yeah." And I was like, "How is he teaching you about sales in Houston real estate?" When he's not even a part of it, right? Or how is he taking you by the hand and showing you how to do an open house? How is he taking you by the hand and knocking doors with you? How is he
going to your
training?
appointments? I have an agent on my team. She literally got her license a month ago.
Yeah.
And she got a listing appointment from her coworker, and we got the appointment, got the listing. She didn't have to do anything because that's the benefit of being on a team. You can watch me firsthand. Like, you got the appointment, you set the appointment, fantastic. Now let me help you make sure that we're able to handle this from start to finish together.
Closer.
Yeah.
Like you went in, you closed it, right? She set the appointment, you closed it.
I mean,
it's
I didn't
her
do
business.
my first listing appointment without you until I think 2 years in.
Yeah.
But other than that, it was cool. I got a listing appointment. Great, I'll go get it for you. Like, that's how it is. That's how it should be. It's an investment in somebody else.
But at the end of the day, you got to watch and hear all of the objections. You got to watch and hear all of the ways that we add value, the ways that we show and set expectations for clients. You got to watch all of that, hear it, see it being practiced live without you needing to practice on somebody, right? Because that's the scary thing is, like, who do I practice with? So even if I memorize a script, once you get in front of an actual seller and you're actually trying to convince them, like, I'm the right person to help you, that's not the time to practice on something.
Yeah, that's game time.
That's when you mess stuff up, right? So I think that's why you get a year and a half of, like, seeing an expert do that thing, so that by the time you do it on your own, you've seen it so many times, you already know all the objections. You're like an expert at it already on your own, even if it's the first one you've done by yourself, right? And again, that's the value of the team. So I agree. I think asking questions, trying to understand what do you actually provide, and then getting feedback from the people who are on the team, right? Do they actually enjoy being on it, right? And if a team lead or a broker doesn't want you doing that, that's a red flag.
Yeah, I would
If
say
they're
so.
like, hey, why are you calling my agents and asking them questions? I wouldn't want to join that team.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always like, well, what are the splits? What kind of leads do I get? And it's like, if you're relying on crappy online leads for your to like make your business, I mean, those are bonuses. It's a bonus.
It's a protein shake, right?
It is.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
a
It's not a
meal.
meal. It's a matter of what are you doing to help me generate my own leads, to build a sustainable business that's going to be long lasting, and how can I convert these, and how are you going to show me the way? It's not like, oh, well, what's my split? Your split doesn't matter if you don't sell anything.
100% of zero is zero. Right? And if I give you a whole lot of leads and you don't know what to do with them, and I don't teach you what to do with them, then they don't matter. I can give you 100 leads tomorrow and promise you every day I'm going to send you 100 leads. But if you can't convert them, if you don't know how to actually serve them, how to give them a great experience and turn them into an advocate that's going to send you referrals down the line, then it doesn't really matter. So for us, it's like the Chinese proverb, right? Like, teach a man to fish, you'll feed him for a lifetime is kind of our thing. Like, yeah, we give out leads, but that's not my pitch when I talk to anybody. I'm like, yeah, well, that's a supplement. You're going to have some of those. But the real pitch is, I'm going to teach you how to go get your own, and then how to actually serve them well so that they love you and they give you more referrals. That's
You just said, I mean, you just summed it all up. I mean, we're going to teach you how to run a business. Because that's essentially what a real estate agent or a real estate professional is a business owner. But if you treat it like a hobby, you're a hobbyist, then take orders, right? Like, take online leads and do your best, and maybe close 6 or 7 deals a year. But if you're growing your business, then it's long lasting, it's sustainable, right? It's what we're talking about.
For sure. Well, I think this was beneficial.
Wonderful.
Hopefully you enjoyed watching the first Behind the Curtain. That's what we're calling it, right? We like that?
I like it.
We're in front of the curtain.
Yeah, we're in front of the curtain. We're not behind it. But
yeah, I mean, we're sharing the secrets, right? We're sharing the what's behind the curtain. I wanted to call it spilling the beans, but Nick had a better idea.
I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, I don't like beans being in the name, but behind the curtain, that's fantastic.
You said something early on when I first started. I'll teach anybody my secrets and tell anybody how I do the job, because you're either going to do it and make the industry better as a whole and serve people at a higher level, or you're just not, and I'm going to take your market share.
There you go. That's yeah, that was pretty rough. I said that when you first started.
At Pico's, actually, like during the interview, I think.
Okay, so then I had some tequila in me. So
We had some
thanks.
tequila.
Good deal.
Yeah. We tell agents that all the time. Look, I'm going to share everything that I know with you, because I know that most people aren't going to do anything with that. So it doesn't really matter. So there is no silver bullet. There is no like magic secret thing that we know that nobody else knows. But hopefully through this, you can kind of see what we really think, how are we really dealing with clients, how are we answering their questions and their objections. And if it helps you grow your business, then at the end of the day, we've done our job. We've added value to your life as another agent. So hopefully you'll tune in for the next episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to watch it, and we'll see you guys on the next one.